Let's start by dismantling the sentence leaders love to repeat. The one that gets whispered in boardrooms and plastered across the slide decks when things start to fall apart. We have a communication problem. It sounds reasonable. It sounds objective. It sounds like the kind of diagnosis that could lead to a neat little workshop with sticky notes, frameworks, and a pleasant facilitator who tells everyone they're doing great. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. Most organizations do not have communication problems. They have courage problems. And fear, not misalignment, not lack of clarity, not the absence of process, is what shuts teams down. Think about it. When was the last time someone in your workplace didn't know what the real issue was? People usually know. They can feel it. They talk about it privately. They joke about it publicly. They avoid it collectively. The real issue isn't that the truth is invisible, it's that the truth is dangerous. And so the truth stays unspoken, buried under politeness, professionalism, and layers of linguistic dance. This episode is not designed to make everyone feel safe. It's designed to place a mirror in front of the parts of leadership that prefer to remain unseen. If you're willing to stay with me until the end, I will also give you the H2H Experiment of the Week, created specifically to help you confront the conversations you've spent years avoiding. Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying with me for this episode. So, the corporate myth of communication problems is our topic. Whenever an organization begins to struggle, morale drops, collaboration slows, projects stall. The phrase communication problem gets tossed around like confetti. Suddenly, you see proposals for new internal platforms, restructured meetings, refined messaging guidelines, and elaborate feedback frameworks. It all looks so productive and so beautiful. It feels efficient. It feels good. It gives the illusion of progress. But the truth? These efforts rarely touch the core. They are band-aids for a wound caused by fear. People do not struggle to communicate because they lack tools. They struggle because communication has emotional consequences. To say what's true means risking conflict. To speak honestly means risking disappointment. And to address real problems means risking the collapse of the illusion that everything is fine and beautiful. It's much easier, psychologically and socially, to say we have communication issues than to admit we are scared of honesty. So the organization invests in new systems, new language, while the real issue continues to live beneath the surface. Now, let's move to the psychology aspect of the topic. Freud believed that humans avoid truth because truth threatens the ego. We prefer narratives that protect us rather than realities that expose us. Jung argued that whatever we refuse to confront in ourselves will appear externally as fate, conflict, or dysfunction. Lacan emphasized that much of our communication is shaped not by what we want to say, but by we fear being seen as. If you put it all this together, and you begin to understand why so many teams fall into patterns of avoidance. Communication is not simply the exchange of information. It's the exposure of identity. To speak honestly requires self-confrontation. And most leaders have never learned how to do that without feeling attacked. Every difficult conversation carries emotional risk. The moment you tell someone the truth, you open the door to their reaction. And that reaction might touch the very parts of yourself you've spent years defending. So people talk around the truth, soften it, reframe it, or bury it. This isn't poor communication. This is emotional protection. Now moving to neuroscience. Why does our brain avoid these hard conversations? From a neurological standpoint, the brain does not distinguish between physical danger and emotional threat. When you prepare to enter a difficult conversation, one that may trigger conflict, disappointment, or vulnerability, the amygdala fires as if you're facing a predator. Your body floods with stress hormones, your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten, your breathing becomes shallow. This physiological shift shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, emotional regulation, and long-term perspective. In that moment, your nervous system prioritizes survival over connection. You are no longer thinking as a leader. You are reacting as an organism. This is why people avoid hard conversations, even when they know they're necessary. Their body interprets the moment not as an opportunity for clarity, but as a threat to safety. And safety, whether emotional or physical, always wins. The irony, of course, is that avoiding difficult conversations erodes safety in the long run. Teams lose trust, problems escalate, resentment builds, avoidance becomes culture. Now, let's look at it from the evolution perspective. Why does honesty feel so dangerous for humans? Human beings are social creatures. We all know that. Our ancestors survived by belonging to the group. Acceptance meant safety. Rejection meant vulnerability, and often death. So our biology evolved to prioritize social harmony over individual expression. This evolutionary inheritance is still at play in the modern workplace. Leaders fear being honest because honesty risks disapproval. They fear boundaries because boundaries risk rejection. They fear directness because directness risks conflict. Yet, the paradox is astonishing. Leaders crave respect, but avoid the very behaviors that create respect. Isn't that crazy? Respect is not built through diplomacy, avoidance, corporate jargon, or comfort. It is built through clarity, integrity, and courage. Still, many leaders cling to phrases like, "Let's be careful. We don't want to create tension. This may upset people." As if tension doesn't already exist. As if silence isn't already a message. As if avoiding a problem somehow resolves it. But the truth is simple. People are not avoiding communication. They are avoiding the consequences. Now, let's look into the real reason leaders hide from the truth. Let's go deeper, okay? Leaders do not avoid conversations because they are intellectually complex. They avoid them because they are emotionally revealing. Confrontation exposes the parts of leadership that are still fragile. A leader who avoids conflict often fears the authority won't hold. A leader who avoids boundaries often fears being disliked. A leader who avoids feedback often fears being inadequate. A leader who avoids directness often fears losing emotional control. Communication problems are identity problems. Behind every avoided conversation is a deeper fear of who you might become in the process of having it. Let me repeat that. Behind every avoided conversation is a deeper fear of who you might become in the process of having it. That's important. It takes courage to speak truthfully. It takes even more courage to hear truth directed toward you. And courage, not clarity, is what creates real communication. Now, I'm going to share a personal story of when I hid behind communication issues just to prove the point of this episode. There was a period of my career when I believed genuinely that my team was facing communication problems. I wanted to fix the process. I wanted to create a better system. I wanted to give them tools. I wanted to streamline the way we shared information. It all sounded responsible. It sounded strategic. But the real truth was far more personal. I was afraid. I was afraid to confront poor performance because I feared conflict. I was afraid to give honest feedback because I feared hurting people. I was afraid to make difficult decisions because I fear being judged. I was afraid to speak clearly because clarity might make me accountable. So I told myself, and everybody else around me, that communication was the issue. It was easier to blame the system than to face my own fear. Once I admitted the truth, everything shifted. Not because we changed the process, but because I changed the level of courage I brought into the room. And now I can see my team taking steps forward in terms of courage, in terms of honesty, in terms of being true to ourselves. And magically, it seems like the communication issues are not there anymore. So courage is the skill. Communication is the expression. Organizations spend millions on communication trainings, messaging systems, and feedback frameworks. But none of it works if the underlying issue remains untouched: the absence of courage. Communication tools don't fix fear. Frameworks don't fix avoidance. Models don't fix insecurity. And workshop for sure don't fix egos. Courage does. Courage is the root. Communication is the expression, is the consequence. A leader who has cultivated courage becomes clearer, steadier, more direct, and more trustworthy. Their words carry weight because their presence carries conviction. A courageous leader communicates with integrity because they are not protecting their ego. They are protecting the truth. Fear multiplies across a team, but courage does too. When a leader shows courage, it gives permission for everybody else to do the same. Now, let's go to the fun part of the episode, the H2H experiment of the week. This one I will call the 10-second courage test. This week, I want you to practice a simple but uncomfortable exercise. Every time you feel the impulse to avoid unnecessary conversation, pause for 10 seconds and ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I speak honestly? What am I afraid will happen if I stay silent? Which fear leads to growth and which leads to regret? Those 10 seconds are the space where courage is built. Do not choose the comfortable answer. Choose the honest one. Choose the courageous one. Because leadership without courage is nothing more than positional authority. And that's not leadership at all. And now, let's start to wrap up this episode. I would like to leave you with these thoughts. Communication is not the issue. Courage is. Fix the courage and every line of communication will begin to shift. Avoid the courage and no framework, no system, no model will ever save your culture. Thank you so much for joining me on another unfiltered episode of the H2H Experiment. If you want to continue exploring the deeper psychology of leadership and conscious leadership, you can find my reflection on LinkedIn, my essays on the ECXO, my videos on YouTube, and obviously my books on Amazon under the name of The HX Revolution, where I go even further into the human experience behind every decision. Stay kind, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye.